This recording was not meant to be found. It was discovered inside a residential property that had been officially abandoned for over 8 months. No electricity, no internet service, no registered occupants, no scheduled maintenance visits. Yet, the device used to capture this footage was still operational. What makes this recording disturbing is not what it shows, but when it shows it. According to public records, the last known residents vacated the house in early March. The footage you are hearing now is dated mid-June, more than 3 months later. At first, nothing appears unusual. The camera is static, the hallway is narrow, doors line both sides. The light never changes. There is no visible movement, no animals, no drafts, no signs of intrusion, nothing that would justify the presence of a recording device inside an empty house. But investigators later noticed something subtle. The camera angle shifts slightly between segments. Not enough to suggest it was knocked over, not enough to suggest an accident. It appears to have been deliberately adjusted. There are no fingerprints on the device, no disturbances in the dust around it, no evidence that anyone had entered or exited the property. And yet, the camera had been repositioned at least 3 separate times. What follows is where the recording becomes increasingly difficult to explain. At approximately 14 minutes into the footage, the audio captures a low ambient sound. It is not a voice. It is not footsteps. It is closer to a pressure change. Experts described it as the sound a room makes when someone enters it. Even though nothing appears on screen, no doors open, no shadows cross the hallway, no reflections change, but the sound is clearly present. Moments later, a faint distortion appears near the far doorway. It lasts less than a second. Most viewers never notice it. Those who do tend to rewind the footage repeatedly, frame by frame. The anomaly resembles a light artifact, but the house had no power. There are no reflective surfaces positioned where the distortion appears, and the shape does not match known lens flare behavior. What makes it more unsettling is what happens afterward. The distortion does not appear again in the same location. Instead, it reappears later in a different room, always near doorways, always partially obscured, never fully forming, as if whatever caused it could not fully enter the frame. Audio analysis reveals another detail. After each appearance of the distortion, the ambient sound of the house subtly changes. Rooms begin to sound smaller, more enclosed, as though the internal acoustics are slowly compressing. One investigator described it this way: "It's like the house is being occupied, not by someone entering it, but by something replacing it." The recording continues for several more hours without visible incident. Then, without warning, it ends. There is no shutdown sequence, no low battery indicator, no final movement. The footage simply stops. Weeks later, authorities return to the property. The camera was found exactly where the recording ends, but the hallway was no longer identical to previous documentation. One door, which had been closed in all earlier records, was slightly open. Behind it was an empty room. No furniture, no markings, no signs of habitation, only a faint discoloration on the floor, roughly the size and shape of where a person might stand. The house was demolished several months later. No explanation was ever provided. The recording remains archived under unresolved domestic anomalies, and to this day, no one has been able to explain who adjusted the camera after the house was abandoned. There is one detail most reports do not include. During the final review of the footage, analysts noticed something that does not appear in the video itself. It appears in the metadata. Each time the distortion manifests on screen, the internal clock of the device desynchronizes, not by seconds, by minutes. The timestamp shifts forward, then corrects itself, as if the recording briefly loses its place in time. This behavior has only been documented in one other category of recordings: devices that continue to operate after being manually powered off. In those cases, the devices are not responding to external input. They're responding to proximity. What disturbed investigators most was what happened during the final playback session. While reviewing the footage frame by frame, the room in which the analysts were working began to exhibit similar acoustic behavior. Ambient noise changed. The room sounded smaller, more enclosed. Several analysts independently reported the sensation that something was standing just outside their peripheral vision. No one could describe it, only that it felt aligned, as if it were positioned correctly. The review was halted shortly after. The footage was sealed, access was restricted, and the device itself was destroyed. However, one final anomaly remains unexplained. The last known backup of the recording contains an additional timestamp, one that does not correspond to any known playback session. It is dated several weeks after the house was demolished. The file is empty, no video, no audio, just a single line of system data. Camera position updated. No one has been able to determine where that update occurred or what space the device was recording from at the time.